Hello, Pastor Mark here from the Word of Life Church in Omaha, Nebraska. Word of Life Fellowship Church in Omaha, Nebraska. I hope you're having a really good day. Today is a hot one. I think it was close to 100 degrees here. It might have been a little over here in Nebraska in late September. Probably the last really warm day that we will have this year. So it's going to sound crazy, but I'm enjoying it as I can, because it won't be long and frost will be on the ground, and next thing you know, we'll be longing for spring. Today's Bible study, we're just going to jump right into it. I hope it's a blessing to you. We're going to talk about some specific things about the life of Joseph, the young man in Genesis, I think it's chapter 36, that is sold to his cousins, I believe, to be taken down to Egypt and sold again as a slave. It's terrible. You talk about dysfunction in a family. There's some problems there, but that's not what we're going to focus on. But that is what it starts with. So Joseph, the Lord he gave Joseph many dreams, and he was his dad's favorite kid. There were 12 boys and 1 girl in this family. Their sister's name was Dinah, in case some of you are not aware of that. And Joseph was his dad's favorite child. He was the first child with Jacob's wife, Rachel. Probably would have been Joseph that got the birthright if that had been passed like that. Having said that, his brothers hated him. He was probably a little bit cocky. Sorry, I've got some insects flying around. That goes with warm weather all of a sudden. He told about his dreams, and in his dreams, he is exalted, and his brothers and mother and father kneel and bow before him, as it were, and they hated him for that, because number one, they're older than he is, and he should be almost subservient, if you please, to them. Having said that, he is sold, and the Bible says 2 different things. It says a band of Ishmaelites, and then it mentions some Midianites being there. Well, Midian was a son of Abraham by his wife Keturah, which he married after Sarah died. Sarah is the mother of Isaac, who was the promised child. And Ishmael was the son of Hagar, another wife of Abraham's, that is the father of the Arab nations as we know it today. Midian was one of the 6 sons born to Abraham through his 3rd wife, Keturah, which again he took after Sarah had died. And some of you may not have that connected. So whether there were Midianites and Ishmaelites mixed together, they were the cousins of the sons of Jacob. And they knew this. Jacob's brother Esau went to his uncle Ishmael and married one of Ishmael's daughters for his 3rd wife. You can read that in the book of Genesis. They had a connection with Ishmael. They knew who he was. He was their uncle. And forgive me, I've got a breeze blowing my notes around. And as it was, that's the way it was. So their cousins bought him, hauled him off to Egypt, and sold him in Egypt as a slave. That's pretty rough. And if we're following the timeline correctly, I think the Bible, I think it's chapter 36 in Genesis that says Joseph was 17. And then in chapter 41, when he is brought out of the prison, finally, interprets Pharaoh's dreams, and is ascended and placed at second in command in all of the land of Egypt, he is 30 years old at that time. So 13 years have passed, and Pharaoh gives him a wife named Asenath. She is the daughter of a priest there in Egypt, and his first child is born. Manasseh is his name, and it basically means that God has caused me to forget all my troubles. So he was happy. That's what that tells us. He was happy. And then Ephraim is born in those first 7 years of his marriage to Asenath. Joseph is happy. He's blessed. He's being prospering in the kingdom of Egypt, and God is blessing him. And then the famine comes, and his brothers show up. And he sees his brothers, and he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. To them, he probably just looks like an Egyptian. He's speaking Egyptian, and the Bible tells us there he's using an interpreter. And he's not doing that because he can't speak Hebrew. He's doing it because he wants to continue them not recognizing him. He doesn't want them to know. He knows what they're saying. He hears them. He's listening to their conversation, and he understands them, but they don't know that he understands them. And he accuses them of being spies, and he's very rough with them and harsh with them, and throws Simeon in the jailhouse and holds him there until they come back. They sends him home. That took a while. They traveled home. They ate the food that they had purchased in Egypt, and it took a while, and then they came back, and all this time Simeon's sitting in the jailhouse. Why is he doing that? Why is Joseph doing that? There's probably a number of reasons, but ultimately one of the best lessons we can learn from the story of Joseph, there are many things, by the way, but one of them, that's what we're going to focus on today, is forgiveness. Forgiveness. His brothers did him wrong. His cousins did him wrong, and no doubt all the way down to Egypt he was begging them and imploring them not to sell him as a slave, and not to do this, and not to keep him chained up and in bondage. But they did. And then they sold him. And then he tried to make the most of his life, and God blessed him. And then he was accused falsely of a crime, and he was thrown in the prison house for years. We know it was at least 2, because after he interprets the baker and the cupbearer, the butler's dreams, it's 2 full years before the butler remembers and tells Pharaoh about Joseph. How long he was in the prison before that, we don't know. We know he was down in Egypt a total of 13 years before he was elevated out of the prison. So he was there a long time. He had hard times. But in all of that, God was good to him. And then he had a season where things were going great, and he forgot about his troubles. Hence the name of his son Manasseh. Then his brothers show up, and all those memories come back. Forgiveness. It was probably difficult for Joseph to just simply forgive his brothers, but he was able to see that it was actually the hand of God in everything that happened. And God had put him in the position that he was, not so he could lord over his brothers, but that he could provide for them and their families and their little ones, and his own dad, and his, they were not stepmothers, but Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah? Anyway, were 4 wives of Jacob. Rachel had died already. Some of you may not know that. It's there in the Bible. But he had to forgive, and he was able to. And when his father died, his brothers were really nervous. Fast forwarding here in a little bit. And they came to him hoping that he would not be harsh to them. And he told them plainly, he said, look, you meant it for evil. Now that is important. He did not mince words. He didn't say, oh guys, you didn't mean it. No, he knew they meant it. And they meant it for evil. See, their conversation was to kill him. And then somebody talked him into, okay, why don't we just sell him to these Ishmaelites that are coming by? Yeah, we'll do that. We'll get rid of him that way. Otherwise, they were planning to kill him. Reuben, the oldest, had talked them out of not killing him. We'll leave him here in this hole, in this pit. We'll just leave him there till I come back. Or they would have killed him. They meant it for evil at the moment, at that time when he was 17. But God, Joseph said, meant it for good. To save you and your families and our father, and to keep you all alive. Forgiveness. It's important. It's really important. 3 times. Sorry, but I don't have my phone on a tripod or anything. I'm holding it, so forgive me for the shaking and moving. And the dogs barking in the background. I sure hope you cannot hear them. But maybe you can. In Matthew chapter 6, chapter 18, and in Mark chapter 11, 3 times Jesus says, if we don't forgive other people their trespasses against us, our Father in heaven will not forgive us. 3 times he says that in the New Testament. 3 times. So, it's important. We must forgive. And sometimes that's hard. Oh, Pastor Mark, you don't know what they did. Pastor Mark, you don't know what they said about my children. Pastor Mark, you don't know what kind of hard, terrible things they did to me. Pastor Mark, I know that it's bad. Joseph's brothers wanted to kill him, and the only reason they didn't was God moving on Reuben to stop him. And then they sold him as a slave. And he was gone. And they lied to their dad, told him he was killed. Well, they didn't tell him that. They let him come to his own conclusion. They showed him Joseph's coat, which they had torn, and put some goat's blood on it, and asked him, is that the one you made for him? They knew full well what it was. And Jacob wailed and cried and moaned and mourned. Joseph's dead. And they let their father believe that for 13 years. Or more. Well, more than that, because the famine, the good years, 7 years of plenty was there. So that's 20 years, folks. The famine begins, and it's 20 years since Joseph was sold as a slave. Yeah, because he was 17 when they sold him. He was in the prison house 13 years. When he's elevated, he's 30, that tells us. And the dreams that Pharaoh had were there were going to be 7 years of plenty. So add 7 to that 13, that's 20 years. Then we have famine for 7 years. And at some point, they probably didn't show up the first year. At some point, the famine is really bad, and now they come from Canaan shopping, looking to buy grain. So it's over 20 years since they've seen Joseph, and their father mourns and believes he is dead. And yet Joseph was able to forgive. Joseph was able to forgive because he could see that God actually had his hand in it, and he was trying to save them all. So he could understand that. Sometimes that's not the case, though, when people wrong us. But we have to forgive. We have to learn how to forgive. We have to learn to say, I forgive you. And here's the key. Matthew chapter 18, the 35th verse. I'm going to rely on you to look it up on your own, because while I'm recording this, I can't pull it up on my phone. Jesus says, unless you forgive from your heart, we forgive from our heart, our Father won't forgive us. So it's not lip service. We can't just simply say, oh, I forgive, and then in our heart we still harbor resentment. We have to forgive from our heart. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of prayer. Boy, you're going to have to be praying. You're going to have to learn how to pray for those people to the point, and it'll take some time. It'll take days, weeks, maybe even months. Hopefully not years, but it could, before you can genuinely pray for them and really mean it, that God would forgive them and bless them. And then it's from your heart. So forgiveness is really important. So I've gone on a long time. I think it's like 15 minutes. I apologize for that. But we have to forgive from our hearts the people that have wronged us, or our Father in heaven won't forgive us. And I want him to forgive me, so I'm gonna forgive from my heart. God bless it, right? God bless that forgiveness. Well, God bless you. We love you. I hope you're having a good day. I hope your week is going well. I hope you're going to be with us on Sunday, this coming Sunday at 10:30 at the Hilton TRU, just north of 72nd and Grover, just off of Interstate 80 in Omaha. There's a Scooter's little coffee drive-through place there at 72nd and Haskell. Take a right there and pull right into the parking lot at the Hilton TRU, and we're in the big conference room on the main floor. We'll see you at 10:30. God bless you. Have a great rest of your day.